And we are on Coach Jen Long. Thank you so much for joining me in the stew. Thank you so much for spending your afternoon with me. And I really appreciate you being here. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Before we dive into the questions, I want to give anybody that doesn't know, who you are, I want to give a little bit of a breakdown, and anything that I miss, or if there's any, history that I am unaware of, please fill in the gaps. But the Jennifer Long that I know is owner of Cheer Force, head coach at San Diego State University on both the co-ed and the all-girl teams, who both just had great showings at UCA Nationals. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Also head coach of Granite Hills High School, the Eagles, who also had great showings at UCA High School Nationals. And so congratulations to that. And coach of Infinity and Lady A at Cheer Force San Diego. Is that all that we're doing? I mean, I know there's wife and mom and all that other stuff, but tell me any other hats that I may have missed.
No, currently those are all the hats. There's lots of stuff prior to that, but currently that is it.
That's awesome. Well, we're going to get into the priors.
Yeah.
So if it's all right with you, can we just jump right into the questions that I have?
Of course.
Okay, awesome. Well, the first one, I asked this to everybody that I've interviewed. How, where, and when did you get your start in cheerleading?
Okay, it's kind of a funny story. So actually, I was a dancer. I was not a cheerleader. I did dance and gymnastics growing up. And when I went into high school back in the day, I was on a drill team that was basically a dance team. And I spent 4 years doing that. And when I graduated high school, the dance team that I was on actually didn't have a coach anymore. And so I stayed on to coach them. And when I stayed on to coach them, I had a friend of mine, Caroline Smith, who ended up an NCAA instructor. She was younger than I was, and she was on our cheer team. And ironically, the way that I became a cheer coach is the coach of the cheer team at my high school got a DUI and could no longer drive to practices. And so I'm very thankful for his, mistake in life, because it catapulted where I am today. But anyways, Caroline basically came to me and said, we don't have a coach. We don't know what to do. Since you're coaching our song team at the time, would you step in and take over cheer? And I had no clue what I was doing. Absolutely none. They had a routine, luckily. They didn't have an opening, and I choreographed an opening that was basically a dance routine. If I were to find the video now, I would die of embarrassment. But I didn't know anything about time limits. So they had like a 3-minute and 20-second routine of some sort. We were at USA Regionals, and this was back in the day when it was I believe it was at Palomar, actually. And they got a big fat penalty, but they still qualified for nationals. So I ended up staying on and coaching them and trying to kind of figure it out. And I ended up loving cheer. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I continued coaching cheer and dance. And that summer, we actually decided to go to NCAA camp. And when we went to NCAA camp, the instructors were fresh out of high school, just like me. And it was Tanaz was one of our instructors. Keith and Casey were instructors. Eric Claxton, Tony Yo, like all of the old school boys, all of them were all on staff. And I think I was 19 or 20 at the time, and all of us were about the same age. And we became really, really good friends. And the high school that I was at, which was my alma mater, was Ramona High School. And at the time, Casey was coaching a high school team, and so was Keith. And I became really good friends with them. And they kind of honestly helped me get into what I was doing. They talked me through a lot of the ins and outs of cheer. And then after that, I just stayed as the cheer coach and dance coach at Ramona for quite a few years. And all the while was really good friends with all of them. And we all kind of just grew up together in the industry to start out with. And at the time, Ray had been the coach at Madison High School. And then Ray was also at Champion Outlaws. And by becoming good friends with them, I ended up trying out for the Z90 dance team back then. And the Z90 dance team used to practice out of the Champion gym. So since I was always at the Champion gym practicing, I ended up just kind of in the industry as far as kind of getting into All-Star a little bit and just knowing what was happening. And so I started pretty much just with Ramona for a while. And then as I was coaching Ramona and we got more competitive and I kind of started to, know what I was doing, I also did some of the random, adult teams for cheer. I ended up figuring out what I was doing as a cheerleader. I did Palomar College for a little while for cheer. And then after we kind of started getting going with Ramona, we started to have a lot of interest of people wanting to kind of get involved for a feeder program for Ramona at the time. We didn't have any all-star teams up there, and Ramona's kind of in the middle of nowhere, so it's a little bit far. And so we had a parent reach out to us who expressed interest in, have you guys ever considered doing an all-star gym of any type? And so we ended up opening a really small little all-star gym in Ramona with the intent of it being a feeder program for our high school team. And we just kind of started growing it. It was called Ramona Spirit. It was super tiny. And that parent basically said, what would you think about possibly expanding and going to, an area that isn't so far out in the middle of nowhere? So we ended up opening SoCal at the time. And it was SoCal Elite. And we opened it up in Poway, which is a little bit, closer to civilization for everyone. And when we did that at the same time, because I was still, dancing on Z90 and on Champion, I was in the middle of the mix at the time when Casey and Keith and Bert kind of broke off and started West Coast Mavericks at the time. But then I was really good friends with them, but then I was also really good friends with everybody at Champion. And that was when, Tanaz kind of broke off and started Bullets at the time. And so we all kind of were doing our own thing. And I was just not really involved in All-Star other than my little gym that I was, using to be a feeder program. So I ended up opening SoCal with my best friend at the time. And we kind of existed independently for a year. And then right at the end of that year is when everything kind of blew up in All-Star at the time, and everybody kind of went their separate ways. So then at the time, Keith, Casey, and Bert were at Mavericks, Tanaz was at CA, and then Anna and Andrew and Nicole at the time were Champion was kind of dissolving at that point. And so we were good friends with all of them. So we sat down and decided to merge. And so that's when Outlaws and SoCal Elite pretty much merged together, and we became SoCal Elite Outlaws at the time. And that was from, I believe, 2006, 2007 is when we started that. And then, Ray came and started choreographing our routines. He kind of had gone and done his own thing for a while and then started doing just choreography. And so he came back and choreographed our routine. And I remember we went to Cheer Sport. We'd never been. And it was our first big competition, and we won Cheer Sport, and it was super exciting. And it was awesome. And then we were in that gym from 2006 until 2008. So we were only in there for 2 years. And I don't know if you remember, but that's when the economy went, it was just horrific, everything. And we ended up going into this brand new building. We had signed this 5-year lease because we had all these kids. And then the economy just totally crashed. And we were stuck in this big building with this, incredible rent that we were just in a panic. And it was one of those situations where we happened to have a lot of seniors, that were graduating out of the age eligibility, and tryouts rolled around and our numbers were terrible. And I remember crying hysterically to our landlord and him basically letting us out of our lease. He was an incredible man, said, I totally understand. And at the time, SoCal Elite Outlaws had become really big rivals with West Coast Mavericks. And it was really hard because we were all really good friends and we had all kind of gone our separate ways. And there was a lot of, pre-kids, pre-family, when cheer was everyone's life, there was just so much kind of tension amongst everyone. And we finally sat down one day because we had kids going back and forth between SoCal and Mavericks because we're only about at the time like 20 minutes apart from each other because we were in Poway, but then they're pretty much at the bottom of El Cajon, and we had kids constantly coming back and forth. If they weren't happy with us, then they'd go there and vice versa. And one day we sat down and said, what are we doing? This is ridiculous. We're sitting here competing against each other, and as we're competing against each other, we're right up the road from each other. This is dumb. We're all good friends. This is stupid. And at the time, Ray was up in Simi Valley at the Cheer Force Simi Valley gym, and they were talking about wanting to expand out and open up another location. Well, when that conversation was happening, we were in the midst of maybe we should come together and merge. Well, when we talked about merging, even though we wanted to merge, there was still that animosity from our kids where we were trying to figure out how are we going to get our kids on the same page to join together when they've been rivals all these years. So we said, okay, we can't do teal and black because that was our colors. We can't do red and black because that's West Coast Mavericks. And at the time, Ray said, hey, what do you guys think about sitting down and having a conversation with Becky and Sean, the owners of Cheer Force? We didn't know them. And he said, they're great people, just sit down and talk to them. And so we ended up meeting up and having a conversation with them and loved their energy, loved who they were, loved what they stood for. And we agreed that it would be something we were interested in doing. And Casey and I thought, well, what better way to come together and start something new where our kids won't be upset about choosing one or the other? There is no red and black. There is no teal and black. There is no Outlaws. There is no Mavericks. We need to start fresh with something completely different. So at the time, it was perfect because we thought, okay, well, then we'll be a Cheer Force location and we'll go a totally separate route. And Cheer Force, embracing our situation, at the time, they were navy blue and white, I believe. And so they said, all right, let's go green. I mean, none of us are green, right?
Yeah.
We've got red and black, we've got teal and black, we've got navy blue, we'll go green. And so that's how we decided, all right, we're going to do fresh start. We're going to go Cheer Force. And when we go Cheer Force, we're going to start off with a new color, new name, new everything. And so that's how it came to be. It was kind of a comedy of errors. And then, so on the backside of that, as I was coaching high school, Ramona was my baby. It was my passion. It was my alma mater. It's why I am where I am today. And I couldn't have had my start if it wasn't for coaching at Ramona High School. But after several years, the principal that was there at the time decided that they didn't want competition cheer existing. And so I had to make a decision myself and Christy, my best friend at the time, we had to make a decision of, we weren't going to be able to stay on and just do sideline at the time. So that is when I actually stopped coaching at Ramona. But prior to stopping coaching at Ramona, one of my very good friends who is I will say to this day, she is the reason why I am where I am. And that is Helen Price. She was the uniform rep at the time, and she was the coach at Granite Hills, and she was a coach and advisor. And when she came to do uniform fittings with us at Ramona, she was going to have to step away from Granite as the coach, but was willing to stay on as the advisor. And she asked if there's any way I would take over Granite. And at the time I said, absolutely not. I have Ramona. I'm not going to coach two high school teams simultaneously. And after a lot of conversations and her saying, please, is there anything that we can do? I decided to take over Granite, but to put them in different divisions. So I coached Ramona and Granite simultaneously for a handful of years. And then once Ramona, we weren't going to be able to have the competitive team, then we stepped away from Ramona, and then I solely did Granite. And I actually coached Poway High School for 4 years, and I coached Academy of Our Lady of Peace, OLP, with Casey for a few years. But Granite is where I ended up, staying long-term and have been there for 24 years. And then Helen is also the reason why I ended up the coach at San Diego State, because her and her husband coached at San Diego State for several years, and a job opportunity popped up where they were advertising that they needed a coach. And she came to me and said, you need to apply for this position. And at the time, I thought, there's no way. No, they're not going to hire me. I'm a high school cheer coach, because that was my only background at the time. And she said, I think you would be amazing. You need to do it. You need to apply. And so I applied, and there was 20 of us, applying for the job. And I knew there was no way I was going to get it. And to this day, I know why I got it. It's because Helen and Chuck stepped in and put in a good word for me. And I'm not clueless enough to think that I was the best applicant, but I think that they believed in me, and, they stepped up and put in a good word for me, and I got hired. So I technically started Granite and SDSU at the same time, which was in 2000, 2001, but I technically became the head coach, I believe, in 2002. So that's been 24 years now.
Wow.
And Cheer Force San Diego has been since 2009. And we've had a lot of, ins and outs. We've had other locations open up, and our core group is obviously the Simi Gym, who started it. And then the Arizona Gym now, which is Dee Dee is the owner of the Arizona Gym, but she was previously the owner of the Orange County Gym. But she ended up moving to Arizona when COVID happened and everything. We ended up, the Orange County Gym closed down, and then she moved out to Arizona. So, but I'm just extremely fortunate that the people that are in my life, within this industry, are just their family. I mean, in every possible capacity, whether it be San Diego State, whether it be Granite, whether it be Cheer Force. I just have
Yeah.
some incredible people that have paved the way and made things possible for me to be where I am today. So a
Yeah.
very long-winded story, but it all started with
That
a
was great.
DUI.
Yeah. Not yours though. Not yours.
Not
Someone else's.
mine, to be clear.
Well, that was awesome. And you actually, I mean, you answered the second question before I could even ask it. I was going to ask, like, after asking how you got your start, like how Cheer Force, came to be,
Yeah.
because I know that there was, some stuff that happened. I was at California All Stars in San Marcos from 2006 to 2010, and so it was like during that time is when Cheer Force San Diego became a gym. So I was going to ask you that, and you
Yeah.
just went into it. I didn't have to prompt you. It was a perfectly natural segue. And when you were listing, yourself and Casey and Tanaz and Bert and all these guys, it was like, for those that don't know, like if Southern California cheerleading like was a mafia, she just listed all the dons. Like that, those were the
For
dons.
real,
Like
right?
those were all the dons, just name dropped all the dons, all the mafia dons. That was,
100%. And
dude,
there's
those are
so
the,
many more than that. I mean, that was
yeah,
literally just a
it's like,
handful. Like
and
there's just
yeah,
literally everyone.
and you mentioned Ray. It's like that. It was like all the heavy hitters, like everybody,
Well,
and
it's
they,
kind of funny too, because when you think about it, most of it started because of Ray coaching Madison. And when Ray
right,
coached Madison, he was, the coach of all of these different people. And I happened to come into the mix just because of circumstance of you just, meeting certain people at the right time. So even
right,
though I was never coached by Ray, he's, clearly one of my best friends, one of my biggest inspiration. I mean, I could be here all day talking about Ray Jasper, as could everyone
yeah,
in the cheerleading industry. But
right, right,
but he is the reason why so many of the heavy hitters are who they are today, no
right,
question. And I know
yeah.
that goes without saying.
Yeah, and what a testament to not only who he is but how he is. That, I mean, before I go into that, it's like he's the reason how you and I connected. If it wasn't for
Totally,
him, so
I
here
know.
he is, 30 years in the game,
Yep,
and he's still inspiring, and he's still building bridges and still
yep,
connecting people. It's like it's just unbelievable what he's done.
I
It's,
know.
oh my gosh, yeah, he's. I mean, listen, I try to avoid the goat conversation when it comes to cheerleading, just because there's so many
Right.
different things. But if you're gonna name a goat, it's Ray Jasper,
Absolutely.
like
We
the
he
goat,
gets so irritated with us because we always refer to him as the Ray Jasper.
right?
He gets so
As
mad.
you should.
But it's true. And
Yeah.
can we talk about the fact that the man does not age? He looks
Hello.
exactly the same as he did straight out of high school. I don't understand
Yeah,
it. It's
I don't
it's
get
a
it.
genetic lottery. I don't
It's,
understand, but
yeah, it's kind of annoying too, right?
right?
Like,
I know. It's super annoying.
like I've aged, 20 years, and he hasn't aged anything. It's kind of, it's
And he's
frustrating.
never
Yeah,
going to. It's him and
yeah,
Anna. Annalisa, I swear, looks exactly the same as she did day one too.
yeah,
It's the damn freaking Islanders. They just look
right.
amazing. I'm jealous.
Okay. Well, I want to get into our next question, and you got a little blurry on me. I think you adjusted something
Oh,
on your computer, and it
oh,
got blurry.
hold on.
Which we could fix it. I mean, if anybody's just listening, they don't even notice, but it's
Is
not that big of a deal. Um. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Yeah.
that
See,
better?
yeah, you are perfect IT support. Perfect.
And I
Um.
apologize, but my cat is just on my
That's all
lap.
right.
So if you
Yeah.
see the
This
fighting
is
cat,
this is
that's
what
what it is.
happens when you do live interviews. You just roll with
Yep.
whatever's going on.
Yep.
Okay, and not only did you answer my second question without me asking it, but you already segued into my third question, and because I already know Ray's going to be part of the answer.
Right.
But who are and who were your biggest influences? Throughout, not only at the beginning, but even now today, who are some of your biggest influences in cheerleading?
Oh goodness. I mean, Ray, of course, is. I mean, he's the number one as far as just everything. I don't know how the man does what he does. He's just incredible. And on top of him being a artistic genius, he is just somebody who is he's so committed as a choreographer in the sense that he truly cares about the outcome for his clients. And I know he's family to me, so I get it. I know that, of course, me saying this is obvious, but he is definitely, the greatest in my personal opinion. A lot of people though, as far as why I am here, today is because of, like I said, Helen. I mean, Helen, my I just can't even imagine being anywhere without her. And I know that she's not technically, in the cheer industry anymore, but she is the person who I look up to in so many ways, because if it wasn't for her, I would not be here. But as far as my start, I really do think that if it wasn't for Casey and Keith and Bert, honestly, I mean, they are the ones who walked me through what I was doing. And it's just so funny because dance was my passion. It always was. It was something that I loved so very much, and I still do.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have never expected having the passion for cheerleading. It's not something that I ever, especially because I was not a cheerleader until after I graduated high school, which is hilarious. It's just one of those, the whole those that can't do teach.
Right.
Apparently, that's me.
Yep.
And I was decent, but I didn't cheer until after high school. So I feel like if it wasn't for Casey, Keith, and Bert specifically,
Mm-hmm.
walking me through everything and holding my hand through it, I don't feel like I would be where I am today.
Got it. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so we touched on, and I want to try to get the divisions. You're coaching Infinity, which
Yep.
is small co-ed. Is it open?
It's
Small,
International Small Co-ed 7.
international small co-ed 7. Lady
Yes.
A, which is
Which is
international
global.
global,
Yes. 6.
all girls 6.
Yeah.
Then we have Granite Hills High School, which is it
Yes.
large varsity advanced?
It's Super Varsity Division 1.
Super Varsity Division
Yes.
1, and then
Yes.
we have SDSU All Girl, which is D1A, right?
Correct.
And then
Yep.
SDSU Co-ed, small co-ed, which
Yes.
is also
D1A.
D1A. So
Yeah.
those are the 5 teams that you're coaching.
Yes.
And so my question is, what are some of the big differences that you have to manage in coaching, all stars versus high school versus college athletes? Like, are there switches that you have to,
Oh,
switch and kind of things?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about some of
Yes.
that for me.
So I feel like I have a really unique perspective because I coach all three facets of cheerleading, basically. Every single one of them has their own unique style as far as the differences in what I feel like I get out of each one, or what the athletes get out of each one. With high school, you definitely deal with a lot more emotional, and those kids are trying to figure themselves out. They're trying to figure out their lives, and within that age group, ninth grade to 12th grade, you're dealing with a wide variety of personalities. And I feel like I'm very fortunate because being at Granite for so many years, it's kind of a well-oiled machine. Those
Mm-hmm.
those kids and parents are so supportive, and there's just such a foundation, if you will, and traditions have just kind of always been, where I feel that I'm very lucky compared to a lot of high school coaches, because I know coaching high school can be really difficult,
Mm-hmm.
especially since COVID. The changes are just night and day, and a lot of these kids were definitely affected from a social standpoint, just from dealing with things. And so I feel like high school is a little harder with just navigating these kids' emotions and them trying to figure out who they are. So that to me is probably the biggest difference with high school. However, you are dealing with kids who are representing their school, and a lot of my kids obviously cheer all star as well, but I think what they get out of high school is really important from a social standpoint. I think that is a big part of why high school cheerleading is very important. And, there's a battle. People always say, like, how can you do high school cheer? And, a lot of the all-star coaches, and, even some of my own all-star coaches at my gym just can't stand high school cheer because it conflicts. And, obviously it doesn't conflict for my kids because I can make sure their schedules don't conflict. But in general, it's very difficult for, all-star coaches to understand the purpose of high school cheerleading.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's important because I think them developing those relationships and being involved in their school, and those opportunities, I think are extremely important. So to me, that's the importance of high school cheer. With All Star, it's much harder from a as an owner, specifically with
Yeah.
coaching. My situation is different because the 2 teams that I coach at the gym are our world's teams, or 2 of the 3 world's teams. And those are kids who I also primarily coach on my college teams.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a different dynamic. But the one thing that I love about coaching all star is just the excitement. I feel like our kids get really excited because they love, college cheer, but, getting to be a little bit more playful with performances. The
Right.
college routines are definitely not as exciting from a
Right.
choreographical standpoint,
Well,
not from a skill standpoint.
and for those that don't know, SDSU is a UCA
Correct.
program, so
Yes.
it's much
Yes.
more traditional.
A
Uh,
hundred
not
percent.
not game day, but it's definitely
Yeah.
skill
Oh,
based,
yes.
and not so
Yes.
much of the NCA style. So yeah,
1000%.
yeah,
So I'll start from the standpoint of a coach, because I coach kids that are very, almost the same kids, if not all, most of them are the same kids.
yeah.
It's easy. But as an owner, All Star is difficult just because of navigating and managing the parents. And all my parents, I love my parents, but when you're dealing with 300 plus, parents, that all the different ages, you're not just dealing with athletes. And so it can be very exhausting, because it's
Yeah.
your clients and you want them to be happy. But as you know, it's very difficult. It's difficult. I feel like a lot of the times, I feel like I spend more time putting out fires than anything else. So it is
Yeah.
kind of exhausting. But I have some of the most amazing, would run through a brick wall, do anything for our gym, diehard families that bring me back to that moment of, okay, that's why I do this. This is why I do this.
Yeah.
So, All Star is a tough beast, but
Yeah.
it is definitely an exciting one. And then for college, I love coaching college cheer. To me, is just the best of both worlds, because you're coaching kids who are representing their school, but
Hmm.
they're also competitive, and they're there because they want to be there. By the time you've graduated high school, by the time you've done all of that, if you're still cheering in college as an adult with, all of what life has to throw at you, it's because
Hmm.
you really want to be there. And so you're
Hmm.
dealing with athletes whose work ethic, whose, motivation, it's unparalleled. And so coaching college is definitely, to me, the easiest,
Hmm.
because even though those kids, go through it and have all kinds of things that they go through, I love coaching college cheer, because I think it's that pure, just, we are here because we want to be here mentality, where you don't have to pull it out of them. It's just already there. And if
Right.
they're such good students, because especially at San Diego State, it is impossible to get into that damn school. When I
Whoa.
started coaching there 24 years ago, anybody could get in. It was everybody's
Yep.
backup school. It was the party school, and I'll put
Right.
San Diego State on, I'll get in there. And
Yeah.
now, kids with like 4.6 GPAs aren't getting in.
Oh,
And
I know.
so you're,
I
yeah, it's
coach some of
crazy.
them.
Exactly. So you're dealing with kids who are so beyond, intelligent. And it's,
Hmm.
you got to think to yourself, well, kids that are that smart and work that hard in school are going to be the types of kids that are going to work that hard in a cheer program. And so,
Yeah.
that is really cool. So I think all three are just so different, and I love all three in such different ways. And
Yeah.
it's fun. It's fun, and for SDSU, because we compete UCA, and for the record, we compete UCA for a couple reasons. I'm a very UCA style person. It's just who I am. I
Hmm.
love good old fashioned traditional cheerleading. We
Yep.
used to compete NCA, actually. The first couple of years that I coached SDSU, we competed in Daytona when we were small co-ed only, and we did great. We got top three, and we had a great time. But the way San Diego State works, we are a very heavy basketball school. Our basketball program is a very big deal, and our kids are constantly, we have Mountain West basketball tournament, we have NCAA travel, and Daytona happens right in the mix of all of that.
Yep.
And Daytona happens when the kids are right in the middle of school. It doesn't line up with spring break, where UCA happens in between semesters for my kids. So
Mm.
they go on Christmas break, they go home for a handful of days, they come back, and then they get to train and have nationals practices when school is out. And so you get their undivided attention and focus. And yeah, it's hard. Having kids ready in January is very, very difficult, but
Yeah.
they're not stressed out about school. They're not stressed out about, how are we going to make this happen? They get to focus just on cheerleading. We get back from nationals, and then second semester starts the next day.
Yeah.
So I
Wow.
love that because I feel like we are just in our nationals bubble and that's all that they focus on. And then we don't allow them to do all-star. We used to. And
Mhm.
my own all-star, teams kind of ruined that whole thing because I ended up having multiple years in a row where we were getting ready to go to nationals and somebody blew out their knee at all-star practice and somebody broke an ankle and we're scrounging, throwing alternates in the week of nationals because they got hurt at all-star practice. And
Right.
granted, they could just as easily get hurt walking down the street. But at this point, my college athletes, they have weightlifting 3 times a week. They're tumbling on the regular. I don't call it dead floor or hard floor because it implies that it is difficult. The flat floor or regular floor is what we like to call it.
Right.
But
Well,
they're
well, hold on,
training
hold
on
on.
that.
Here's I'm gonna pause for just a moment because
Okay.
it was very recent. Like people within, if they have not known, like the spring floor being added to every competition was
Oh
only
yeah.
something that started in like 2000. I
Uh
want to
huh.
say every competition on the West Coast didn't have
Yep.
spring floors required until like 2007. So
One
there
thousand
was,
percent.
and I know USASF started in 2004, and the majority, like cheer sport, was the first to incorporate spring floors. And I know that it caught on out east way back. But I was
Yep.
cheering. I was still cheering in college. I was on an open team, and you would go to events, and there would just be the. I mean, I call it a dead mat, but it was just that was the floor. That was the
Yep.
floor. It was just the
Yep.
floor. That was all it
Oh,
was. Like,
I can throw you one better than that. When we
yeah.
used to have NCAA Holiday Classic at Mount Carmel High School, we had wrestling mats. And
Oh,
it wasn't even, yeah. And not only was it wrestling mats, but it was wrestling mats. It wasn't a full floor. So you would just tumble off the
right.
wrestling mat and you land on the hard floor, you land on the hard floor, you deal with it. Like that was
Yeah.
normal.
You
So
just
when the
keep it
kids
moving.
all complain, I'm like, don't even, I know I age myself when I say that, but it's like, come
Yeah.
on, I don't even want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
We used to practice outside on grass. Like, it's
Right.
just fine. You're fine.
Well, that's
It's not a
and
big
that's
deal.
like when these kids are like, "Oh, this floor is so hard." I'm like,
I know, right?
"Don't give
Don't even
me
go
a
there.
break." I learned, listen, and this is going to be one of those like, I walked to school uphill both ways in the
100% in
snow.
the
Like,
snow, both
but
ways. Yeah.
I learned a double full on the grass at Century High School.
That's
Like,
amazing.
that's where
Oh,
I learned.
Century. They were
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah, but
Love
but that
Century.
was when I was on an open team. I was on
Yeah.
Cheer Empire, coached, by Eric
Oh, yeah.
Anderson, and
I was about to
it's
say
like,
Eric.
yeah, but that's
Yep.
where I learned to double. I learned to double on grass, buddy. So don't tell me
That's
this
amazing.
spring
Yeah.
floor is hard. Get
I
out of here
know.
with
You're
that.
if the word spring is in it, it's not hard. I don't want to hear it.
Right,
but
right.
but yeah, so that's exactly them training on a regular cheer floor and then having all-star practice and being on the spring floor and going back and forth. We just started having a lot of issues where kids were struggling and their
Yeah,
bodies were exhausted. And at San Diego State, not only do they have weightlifting practices, but they have a million promotions. They're constantly asked to attend I don't even know how many events. So they have all of that. And so we ended up getting to a point where we said, listen, we can't do it anymore.
yeah,
You can jump on an all-star team as soon as we get back from college nationals. It's still early in the season. Most teams have spots available at that point in time, and then that is when COVID happened. As everybody knows, Infinity used to be level 6 and we used to have 5 million boys, and the tradition of that team and legacy is something that we will never forget. They were incredible. But when COVID happened and people stopped moving across the country to go to other teams, because
yeah,
let's be honest, that's what happened with us. We would just have an influx of boys that would just uproot their lives and move out to San Diego, and some of them would just couch surf and do whatever they needed to do. I can't even tell you how many people lived in Casey Pop's house over the years. Like, it is like if you were to put a poll out there right now, you would die to see how many people lived with him, because he's got the heart of gold and wanted everybody to be able to participate in everything, and so turned his garage into a house for a bunch of the boys. And did a lot of things to try to make it happen for a lot of these boys. But when
yeah,
COVID happened, people just stopped doing that, which is I don't know how people did in the first place. Like, more power
right,
to you. My mom, if I would have said, hey mom, I want to go cheer at a gym that's 45 minutes away when there's one 15 minutes away, she would have laughed at me. And my mom's
right,
the most supportive person in the world, but it would have
right.
been, you're not going to go all that way. But these people, like, amazing sacrifices to be a part of a team. But
Yeah,
anyways, that stopped. So as soon as that stopped, and we in San Diego, for us at least, we don't have an influx of boys. We have a
Right.
handful, and as most people have seen the past few years, we just kept recycling our same poor boys.
Right.
Poor
Yeah.
Ian and Ryan. I don't even those two boys will tell you how many times they got forced into jumping back on Infinity. But anyways, we just didn't have that influx, and with us saying that the college kids couldn't do All Star until it was over, and then COVID happening, that is when the whole transition happened into, okay, where are we going to be the most competitive? Where are we going to fit in the most? And it was kind of a no-brainer. I
Yeah.
have all of these incredible college athletes that have level 7 skills, and it's 18 and up, so we can't use the younger kids.
Yeah.
And it's a great opportunity for a lot of these college kids who are done with their competitive season for college in mid-January, and when tryouts aren't until May, that most of them all cheered All-Star when they were younger. So it's best of both worlds, because then they
Yeah.
get to focus on college cheer the first half of the season. They come back, and it's okay, let's shift gears and jump into All-Star. And it's not mandatory for them to do it. They can do it if they want to. San Diego State Cheer and Cheer Force, yes, of course it's connected, but it's not like a required thing. It's not anything like that.
Yeah.
There are people on Infinity and Lady A that are not current San Diego State cheerleaders. They're, the majority are, yes, but there
Yep.
are definitely some that are not. So that is when we kind of, the COVID year when everything was virtual, that's what ended up happening, because San Diego State wasn't allowed to come on campus at all for the entire, we did not step foot on campus for 16 months.
Oh my
So
gosh.
when that happened, and all those kids, made SDSU cheer for the year on a video, and then we found out that their season wasn't happening at all, a lot of those kids lived in San Diego and, wanted to cheer. And so that's when we ended up doing level 7 that first year. And,
Yeah.
we got our virtual bid, and then went to Worlds, and, ended up winning, and finding out that we won on a computer screen in the hallway of All Star Music or movies or wherever we
Yeah.
were.
Yeah.
But, that was when we did it the first time. And so then it kind of became, well, that was kind of fun, like, I wonder if we could do that again. And so the following year, we did it again, and now we're on year 4. And, we've learned a little
Yep.
bit, because now we know, okay, when you're talking about, we got back from college nationals, and we had choreography. We had one practice, got home on a Tuesday. They had the rest of that week. We had one practice on Monday the following week. And then their choreography started that Wednesday for Lady A.
Wow.
And then they had choreography Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then Infinity was Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So they literally just started 18 days ago,
Yeah.
and then it was just crazy. So I'm getting off on a tangent, but that's how that whole thing started. And so it's a
Yeah.
little scary, and it's a little
Yep.
crazy. And usually it's only one team. And so to do it with 2 teams this year, I have severely questioned my sanity, but we're still going. We're good. We're good.
Well, I mean, do you coach cheerleading if you don't question your sanity?
You're so right. Absolutely. No, of
And
course
before
not.
we go any further, I have to give you incredible props. I have to give Lady A, Infinity, you, Ray, Casey with Resistance, like all these teams. And I know Resistance had a little bit of a head start, but
Yeah.
Lady A and Infinity started, as you said, 18 days ago.
Yeah.
Infinity has gone full out now 5 times, right?
And
Full out.
5
They've gone
times for
full out
Infinity
5
and 6
times.
for Lady A. Yep.
Right. And 2 of those full outs for both teams were on stage at
Uh-huh.
Jams, where
Uh-huh.
Lady A got their at-large bid to Worlds, Resistance got their at-large bid to Worlds, and Infinity got a paid bid to Worlds.
Yep.
So
Yep. It was pretty good.
congratulations. Shout out
Thank
to
you.
you,
Thank
all those
you.
athletes, and Ray and everybody that's involved with all 3 of those teams. Outstanding job. Kudos. That is incredibly impressive to come away, like, you go compete one time, you come away with 2 at-larges and a paid bid with only being a team for a couple weeks. That's absolutely insanity. So
Thank you.
just yeah.
It's a testament to those athletes. And Ray, of course, for giving them incredible routines in the first place. But those athletes are just, there's something special. They really
Yeah.
are. And, Alex, my assistant coach at San Diego State and for Infinity and Lady A, and she's one of my best friends in the world. I
Mhm.
think between the 2 of us with coaching those 2 teams, and the majority of that roster being, SDSU kids, and a handful of like our OG veteran, our boys, Brandon and Brady hold it down for the OG boys,
Yeah.
and then with Chris and Chance and just everything, the culmination of the mindset and just that the way that they all embrace and love each other and just the culture, and the culture of Infinity is the way that they are because of the boys and girls that started Infinity, I mean, literally 15 years at this point. But and on and Andrew starting Infinity back in the day. And
Yeah.
it's just been an ongoing thing where I feel like the culture just kind of stays the same of just, it's the we over me. It's, their motto has always been trust in Infinity. And, before they took the floor, that's what they talked about. Like, let's just trust in ourselves. We can do this. 18 days, 18 months, doesn't matter. You want to make it
Right.
happen, you're going to make it happen. We're gamers. We're going to go make it happen. And we're veterans to the sport. Like, we joke about it's quality over quantity.
Yes.
And granted,
Yes.
they definitely, you could tell on the stage this weekend that they are not quite where they need to be, but you know what? I will take it for 18 days.
Right.
I'll take it for a full season.
Right. And man, if we're able to do that in less than 3 weeks, what are we going to be able to do in the next 2.5 months? It's like,
Totally,
yeah,
totally. And
I
I mean,
can't wait.
we are going to Dallas next weekend with Infinity, and Infinity has not been to Dallas since before COVID, and they've never been since they have been level 7. And
I did
so
not know that. Infinity's going to
yeah,
NCA.
sure is.
Ooh,
Yep,
well, I will
yep.
see you there, Coach. I will be
I
there.
know we're really excited. Well, we thought to ourselves, I mean, if we have to be ready for jams, why not just go to NCA 2 weeks later, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
they're
go.
super
That's
excited.
awesome.
And shout out also, our routines looked great because we also had a really good music producer, and our music is fantastic. So
Well, thank you.
just
I
just
was,
just to make sure that you get your props
I
because
was,
your
yeah.
music is incredible.
Well, thank
It
you very
is.
much. I was not
The
going to
kids
do any.
absolutely love it.
I wasn't going to do any shameless plug, but I'll let you do it. So
Well,
thank
I'm
you
going
very,
to
very
do it.
much.
I'll do it for you.
Well, thank you.
Listen, and everybody already knows this about you, but your attention to detail and your commitment to making sure that teams have the music to not just complement their routine, but to complement who they are as a team. I truly believe that there's so much that goes into a routine being great. And yes, of course, the athletes and of course the coaches, but the choreography and the music, I mean, it's the equivalent of how I always joke with the kids about, performance quality. And it's the equivalent of like going to prom in a pretty dress with no makeup and you don't do your hair. Like, who does that? Nobody. Or a
Right.
Christmas tree with no lights on it. It's not a Christmas tree, right? But the
Right.
music is the cherry on top that makes a Christmas tree a Christmas tree. So, in the best possible way, we have the most beautiful Christmas trees ever. And that is, in large part to you and your, just commitment to excellence where your music is concerned and your customer just relationships. And I mean, I could be here for an hour talking about how everyone in the world should use you, but I don't want that because then you won't have time for us. And that's a problem. So,
Well, I very, very much appreciate it, and it's I've told you this privately, and now I'll say it publicly. We'll put it on wax, but it's been a professional goal of mine to work with Cheer Force. I've told you this. Green is my favorite color. So the first time I saw you guys on the floor, I'm like, "Ooh, I really like those uniforms." Right? That was just my immediate thought. And then of course Infinity goes out there and does what Infinity does. I mean, I can remember vividly sitting in the arena the first time I saw in person the jump rope thing. Right?
uh-huh.
And
Yep.
I believe you guys did that either 2 or 3 years before it
Yeah.
got made illegal because
Yep.
of Infinity, right? Like that's how you
Yeah.
are a pillar of the industry and that you're doing something groundbreaking when the governing body, well, I'll do quotes there, when the governing body creates a rule because of your routine, like that's how you know you're doing something. You know what I'm saying? So,
Totally.
but
That's awesome.
I digress. But it's been a professional goal, and it's been an absolute pleasure working with you and your program. I know last year it was just Infinity. This year I've got to do a substantial amount, and I am over the moon ecstatic that I had the opportunity. It's something I take tremendous pride in. The details for me matter, and I do believe that my experiences as an athlete, a coach, and even a
Yeah.
director, a manager, all really kind of go into the sauce of why I communicate the way that I do. I want it to be as easy as possible, but I also want to get the best product possible because at the end of the day, you're running a business, and so you need your customers to be happy, right? So
Yeah.
I know not only do I want the music to be good just for the sake of doing good music, but there's also all those other little things. Like, I want the kids to be excited so that they get in the car and they tell their parents, like, oh my gosh, we just got our music, it's so good. And now the parents
Yep.
are driving on the way home with a happy kid, and they're relaying
Yep.
that to, like, oh well, my kid is happy at this gym, and this gym is happy because they have their music. And it's like all those, pieces all connect, and I know how important
Absolutely.
it is. So yeah, I very much appreciate that, but I want you to know it's always going to be like that. I'm going to do everything I possibly can, because I want you guys to enjoy it. I want the kids to enjoy it, and it matters. It's like it's my
Yeah.
passion,
Yep.
and to get to be able to do that, and it's just so cool. It's such a tremendous honor, and I'm so blessed and blessed to be able to work with you in your program. So
Well,
thank
right
you
back
very
at
very
you.
much. Okay, well now that we've done all that, I want to transition a little bit, for any potential future SDSU athletes. We already talked about
Mhm.
how difficult it is to get in that. I wanted to kind of get a peek behind the curtain and maybe give
Yeah.
some of those kids a heads up. What is
Yes.
it that you look for, in an athlete who is looking to be looking to try out and be a part of the Aztecs, either co-ed or all girl? What do you look for, Coach?
So I feel like it is, it's kind of a common myth that tumbling is the number one priority. And though it is, of course, extremely important, we are really big on being well rounded. And
Mm,
it's important that our kids are, I mean, on a UCA score sheet, stunting is really huge. We
mm,
need to have really, really, really strong stunting. So whether it's a all girl back spot or really strong bases, or obviously our boys for co-eds, our flyers, whether they're all girl or co-ed flyers, being really well rounded. We've had a lot of kids that try out with incredible tumbling that don't make the program because either they cannot serve a stunting position or
mm,
because of their overall game day. And to be
mm,
clear, I do not need everybody to have cheered high school. We have several athletes that make the program that only did all star, never cheered sideline.
mm.
However, even though they never cheered sideline, they either were just naturally good at, game day, or they did their research and made sure that they could hit a sharp motion.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
the fundamentals of cheerleading. And I think it's really hard a lot of the times for the kids who've only done all star because, with the exception of your 4-8 count dance that you're half the time doing seat rolls and ducking and standing, it's like, how often have they really hit sharp motions? So
Right.
I feel like that would probably be my biggest piece of advice, is making sure that they have some knowledge of game day, whether it's, go watch some videos and, learn what to do from a game day standpoint. I
Yeah.
think that's extremely important. We used to just do tryouts where you just, you show up and you try out.
Mm-hmm.
And the one and only good thing really that came out of COVID for SDSU Cheer was we were forced to do the video entries that one year. And what we
Mm-hmm.
ended up finding was we liked it for at least a first round, so that we don't
Mm,
waste people's time of having people fly all the way out to our tryout and know that they wouldn't have a shot at making the program. So we actually kept that as our round one, where you send in a video, it's all up on our website with the requirements, and you do XYZ, you do, certain, you throw XYZ tumbling passes, stunting, a sideline dance of your choice, whatever is, the different requirements. And then we watch that video, and then you have to receive an invite to come to in-person tryouts, which is pretty much you passed round one, now you need to come to in-person tryouts. And then in-person tryouts, we stunt a lot. They tumble, they do our fight song, which for kids who have never done a fight song, it is hard. So it's something that we have our fight song up on our website already. So you can go on and start learning that. And I would suggest it because the prancing is not your typical,
right.
it's just very different. And all the kids are
Yeah.
very overwhelmed with fight song at first. So I feel like just attention to that. I'm a crazy person. Myself and Alex, the other coach, we are both crazy on social media. We are very strict. And, being a part of our program, you have to understand that there's a certain standard that you are held to where social media is concerned. So that's a big part of it too. You have to clean up your social media. These kids are, ambassadors for our university. They are constantly in the public eye. They'll be walking through the grocery store and someone will see them and, oh, I saw you cheering at the game on Saturday. And they are not allowed to post anything even remotely close to inappropriate. That
Mm,
comes down to, language and music, reposting things, you name it. They have a whole packet that they have to sign as far as their behavior on social media. And the way we look at it, those kids are going to go out and try to get a job after college. And the first thing your employer is going to do, they're going to look up your social media and see if you are going to be a good representation of that business. And it starts with college. So that would be a big piece of advice, is if you are one of those people who, you're constantly wanting to post pictures of yourself half naked, you're not going to make SDSU cheer, or you're not going to last on SDSU cheer because we don't mess around. So I really think that that's an important part of it, is just being able to be a good role model and representative, because if not, and that's okay. Some kids, it's more important to them to be able to post whatever they want to post, but then we're not the program for you, because we are very, very strict about it.
Oh, there you go. That's a heads up for the kiddos. Be careful what you post. And I know every person our age is like, thank goodness social media didn't exist.
Oh God. I'm getting uncomfortable even thinking about it.
Yeah, we'll just move right along.
I don't mean for me. I just mean for
no, I'm just glad. Yeah,
our generation in general.
Well, I mean for me. I mean for me. It's a good thing.
Sure.
Fortunately, most of the dumb things I did were not, captured on any sort of film or recording device. I do have some dumb things that were caught on film for sure, but most of it was left off. Okay, so moving along, and something that stood out to me when you were talking about, and I had no idea, I didn't know this, that you did not start in cheerleading until you were an adult, really. And that's really cool, because I was kind of a late joiner to cheerleading as well. My very first cheerleading experience being on a team was my junior and senior year in high school, and then I stopped. Like when I first graduated high school, I was kind of done. I was teaching camps for USA, but I didn't plan on ever cheering again. And then bumped into Eric, and so then that's what introduced me to all-star cheerleading. My experience in all-star cheerleading was really cheering for Eric at Cheer Empire, and that kind of added a whole new realm of cheerleading for me. So I didn't get into it really until I was an adult.
I didn't know that.
But
That's cool.
but my question for you is, how has your passion for cheerleading evolved or changed over the years? Like when you first got into it to where we are today, like what has shifted as far as like what motivates you and what keeps you going? Like what got you going in the beginning and kind of what keeps you going now today?
That is so easy for me to answer. It's crazy. What has changed is my why. It was about me and my ego as a coach and wanting to have all the accolades because I wanted to be the best. And now it is the complete opposite. It is, and I've had my time. I've won my titles, and I don't mean for that to sound arrogant, because that's not my intention at all. I do it wholeheartedly so that the kids that I coach can experience those moments. And, the amount of athletes over the years that have come back or sent me messages to say the profound impact that I had in one way or another, in their lives beyond cheerleading, that is my why. That is why I do it. And I think that it's, and maybe that changed because of having a family, and maybe that changed because of being a mom. I don't, I tried for years to have a baby, years and years and years, and it just was not in the cards. The amount of money spent on IVF is just ridiculous. And so, I didn't get pregnant until I was 39 years old, and, had Brayden a couple weeks shy of my 40th birthday. So I'm obviously an older mom. And I think that in the past, almost 9 years at this point, that drastically affected my outlook on everything. And I used to get really offended and upset back in the day when parents would say, well, you don't understand, you don't have kids. And I remember being so hurt and so offended by that statement and thinking to myself, please, I'm probably with your kid more than you are. I understand. But at the end of the day, I didn't totally understand until I became a mom. And I think that knowing how important someone else's child is to just that responsibility of being in charge of someone else's child, and the major impact that can have, good or bad. I think that drives most everything in my decision making of anything that I do when it comes to coaching now.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
That's incredible. And I love hearing the evolution of that, and I can relate to that. And I'm sure a lot of coaches, if not all coaches, because most of us, we started out, as an athlete and transitioned into,
Right.
coaching, and so that competitive drive and desire was really, it was all coming from the same fuel tank, right? And it
Yep.
usually takes some sort of catalytic event that shifts it. And to hear, your why is what shifted, that the passion is still
Yeah.
there, the drive is still there, but like it went from, I want to be the best to the best in cheerleading, right, to now I want to be the best for these kids. That's
Yeah,
really cool. Thank you.
definitely.
Thank you for sharing that.
I think that something also shifted too. Back in 2014, I was the head coach of Wrath back in 2014 when Jewel passed away, and
Mm.
she was on Wrath, and it was actually 10 years ago last week, which is just insane to me. And I think that when all of that, which by the way, which is totally, it's unrelated but related. I coached Jewel's little sister Georgia on Granite, and so it's really cool because Jewel, when Jewel passed away, Georgia was like 5 years old,
Mm.
and so kind of staying with Georgia all those years, and Georgia and Jewel's mom Monica, who we were all very close with, passed away as well a handful of years ago, and so I think that when that happened, I think that moment changed everything for me because
Mm.
it went from being this focus of winning, and I remember if our teams didn't do well or if the teams that I coached didn't do well, I couldn't let it go. I was miserable. I was so hard on myself. I was so upset. It dictated how I felt about every day.
Mm.
And that was just exhausting, and basically putting all of the outcome of your mood was dependent upon the success of your team. And that to me was it was exhausting. And I feel like when we lost Jewel, that was that wake up call for me of there are so many things that are just so much more important than the outcome of a cheerleading competition, and
Yeah.
obviously that was, even more so when we lost Kenrod. And so I think that just with our gym kind of having, and I know a lot of gyms have had tragedies by no means, I know we are not the only ones, but I think
Mm.
us having, two athletes, especially in the way that it happened, was just a lot. Where I think our gym just kind of looks at things from a very different perspective when it comes down to it, because we just
Yeah.
we know that at the end of the day, no title or no championship is worth, other things in life. So I think that that's probably a big reason why my outlook has changed over the years as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Of
And
course.
I remember I was at Spirit Sports that year that we
Yeah.
lost Kenrod, and I remember
Yep.
it was like it's this feeling. It's the energy in that room when Infinity performed the second day.
Yep.
There's no way I could ever describe it in words,
Yep.
because it was one of the most beautiful things and one of the most heartbreaking things, like
Yep.
it's at the same time, that I've ever experienced in person.
Yep.
And it was moving. If I could use one word, it was just absolutely moving to see the way that just to have that team go out there and perform under the circumstances as an honor. And
Yep.
I don't even want to talk about it more because I couldn't possibly do it justice. But just as a spectator, I'm getting emotional because I'm remembering the feeling
Yep.
of just being in the room. It
Yep.
it changed it. It gave me a perspective that I just didn't even know existed, and I was just a
Absolutely.
spectator,
Yep.
so you did an incredible job with that team, and anybody that was on that team, you have strength that can move mountains, and it's incredibly it's overwhelming to think about the courage and the strength to go out there and do something like that. It was unbelievable. So that
I
was,
really
yeah.
appreciate that. And
Yeah.
honestly, that was all those kids and the coaches. I mean, at the time, Anna, Andrew, and Brendan, and the people that were leading the team that particular season, and then with all of us, it was one of those things where it was kind of unspoken. Everybody knew they were going to go out there, and we left it up to them. We said, it's your guys' choice. We are going to support whatever you want to do. Nobody would blink an eye if you said
Yeah.
no. And it
Yeah.
was just immediately all of them, nope, we have to go out there. We might be a
Yeah.
mess, but we have to go out there because that's what he would have wanted. And what was really cool that day, as hard as it was, is I think that was one of those days. Our industry sometimes can be awful. It can be nasty. It can be terrible. It can just be something where sometimes you just wonder why you're in the middle of it. And that was one of those moments where there was no competitors. There was no rivalries. There was nothing. There was just people coming together as one, regardless of the colors that they were wearing. And it was one of the most beautiful things I have ever experienced when
Yeah.
we walked out onto that stage, and because we couldn't walk around because of all the people and the fire marshals and everything else.
Yeah.
So we had to walk out on the stage and then walk down on the front. And I remember everyone looking out and just seeing everyone in that room. It was truly incredible. So we are very appreciative.
Yeah, everybody that was there, everyone that was at the competition was there. It was like I can't even describe it. There was no room for anything. Everyone was there to love and show support, and it was just there's so many levels to the impact that had on that day. And
For sure.
again, I was one of those people that was just squashed in between hundreds and hundreds. I had to be thousands of people that were in there,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
yeah, it's one of those, that's a memory that will stick with me forever, is just watching that routine that day, oh
Totally.
my gosh. And I keep talking about it, but I'm like, there's no way I could talk about it forever and still not do it
For
justice to
sure. No, I
how
understand.
moving it
It's
was.
hard to
Yeah.
articulate.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's difficult. Okay. So
Yep.
now, talking about something of that nature, I'm gonna skip around in questions because I kind of wanted to
Okay.
find something that's a little bit more natural. Thinking about how special and how powerful that moment was, like that's in a category of its own.
Yep.
But do you have any? And I know it's probably going to be difficult for you with all your experience, but do you have any? I'm going to put you on the spot. I need
Okay.
I need a Mount Rushmore. So you get
Ooh. Okay.
four like routines that you've coached that are your top four, like that go on your Mount Rushmore and all of your experience of all of your teams, high school, college, and all star. Your Mount Rushmore of routines that you have in your brain, and I just want your gut instinct. Top four.
Okay. Wait, are we talking about like the performance, or are we talking about like the outcome?
I mean,
Or
it's your Mount Rushmore. So
it's my
whatever.
mountain. It's my Mount
Yeah,
Rushmore.
yeah,
Okay.
it's your Mount Rushmore.
For college, it would be when we won UCA back in 2009. It's a really long time ago.
That's all right.
But that one in particular, because the week before we went to nationals, we performed our routine at our basketball halftime, and every single stunt but one fell. And we used to do our performance the week that we were leaving. Every single stunt but one fell, and we got back into practice. We had so many injuries that every single alternate went into the routine. And I remember boarding the plane and crying because I knew we had no shot of I didn't even think we were going to make finals. Thought that there was no way we were going to have a chance. Our roster was all over the place. I watered everything down. We had no difficulty. And we drew back before for UCA. You had to draw out of a hat of what your order was for finals. And we drew dead first. And I remember thinking, well, this is great. We're not as good as everybody. Our routine's watered down. We're going dead first. Everyone's going to forget about us. And then we went and we hit. And then team after team after team after us didn't hit. And I thought we might win, but I thought there's no way because we're not as good as everybody else. And we ended up winning, and it was just the craziest thing ever, because never in a million years would I have expected that to happen. So that was really cool because that was our one title. We're still working really hard to get another one, but we got one. 15 years ago we got one. So for that, I would say that. For Infinity, well, there's two actually for Infinity. And this was back before when they were, the other division. And when I was just the owner, I was not one of the coaches. But as an owner, 2014 NCA, because we'd never been to NCA ever. And I remember messaging Justin Carrier, and he'll laugh because he's going to remember this. I emailed him actually, and I said, hey, we really want to come to NCA, but we're really, really, really hesitant because, rumor on the street is if you haven't gone for years and years, you have no shot of doing well. And we're really nervous about coming all the way out there and like getting dead last place and doing terrible. And he replied and said, that's ridiculous. The best teams are going to be the best teams. Don't listen to those rumors, just come and try it out and see what happens. And so we went for the first time ever, and Infinity got grand champs. And I remember, and the performance in general, I feel like Infinity had been good for a handful of years, but we never went anywhere big. They always competed at local competitions. We'd never gone to a big competition, other than, we go to Worlds, but we've never gone to a big nationals. And I feel like
Yeah.
people knew who we were, but it wasn't until that day that people knew who we were. And I feel like
Right.
that was a defining moment for our gym, for that team, for just, people to know who we were, was 2014. And we ended up, we got bronze that year at Worlds, which was the first time we'd ever medaled. So that was incredible. And then the third one would be 2015. Our finals performance, and then winning for the first time. That was just absolutely epic. I mean, there's no way to top that as far as that first time, and it's so crazy to think. I will never forget Casey and I saying, oh my God, we've got to just live in this moment because it's a once in a lifetime thing. Like, people don't win Worlds hardly ever, if ever. And so this is our one title. And then for it to happen again 4 more times is still just absolutely mind blowing. It's just that was the moment, and it was in the field house. The award ceremony was on the field house stage. And I mean, I could picture it like it was 10 seconds ago. I was super pregnant, and it was a really, 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 really cool thing. So that would be my number 3. So SDSU all girl in 2009, Infinity NCA 2014, Infinity Worlds 2015. And then I think, honestly, I would say for me as a coach, probably Infinity in 2022, because 2021 was the COVID year. So we won, which was amazing, but, there wasn't really a lot of people there to see it. We found out we won, in a hallway on a computer screen. Right. And, it was really cool because we got to actually be there and, compete in level 7 in front of everybody. And, that was the first year where I feel like the performance was really good and I felt really confident. And because we, how in 2019 we didn't get announced as winning because of the whole debacle. We didn't get announced until after the competition was over. So we didn't have a moment then. Then in 2021 with COVID, we found out we won in a hallway. And then in 2022, the way they announced the award ceremony, we didn't realize that we had won.
Right. Oh, that was the year they did, they announced the winner first.
Correct.
So and you thought you were in second.
We looked like total idiots. And in fact, there was so much trash talking on social media.
Right. I remember there was like a tweet.
We deserved it. Yeah, we deserved it. Yeah, it's a joke. The whole, we won. It's you. You won.
It's you. You won.
Yes, and people put all over social media, this poor team, they finally get an award ceremony and they don't even know they've won.
Oh my gosh.
So that. So I would say SDSU 2009 as a coach, Infinity 2022 as a coach, and then Infinity 2014 as an owner, and then 2015 Worlds as an owner. But those coaches, Anna and Andrew, they are incredible. And they are the reason why the legacy of Infinity is Infinity, and Ray, of course. Those are probably my top 4. As far as just most memorable experiences total, whether it be the actual performance and the, outcome or a combination of the two.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So I only have 2 more questions. Okay. Well, I guess the last one's not really a question, but we'll get there. Okay. The last question, is there anything that you would like to see be different in our industry? Anything at all? Like, is there anything that you'd like to see that's changed, that if you could snap your fingers and it would just be different tomorrow? Is there anything that you can think of?
Oh my gosh, that is a hard one.
And it can be more than one thing. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be one thing. It's just like, man, I wish this was a little bit different.
I don't even know where to go. There's a lot of things. Oh God, that's just such a crazy question. I don't even know if I could pull something off the top of my head. I don't know.
Are there a lot of things? Is that what it is?
Consistency. I would say consistency and the changes constantly. That's hard. It's hard, whether it be from a scoring standpoint or, age grids, or there's all, and to be clear, I wholeheartedly understand and know that people are doing the best that they can, because no one is ever going to be happy. There's nothing that anyone could do for anybody to be happy. But I think it's just difficult to keep up when there's just always so many changes. So
Yeah.
good or bad, I wish that things were left longer before changes were made in general, because
Yeah.
I think it's just really difficult to adapt. Especially from an owner standpoint, you're constantly playing catch up, it feels like.
Yeah.
So I feel like that would probably be the main one. And if I could change something tomorrow in general in life that affects cheerleading, it would be social media. I despise social media.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it in one sense, but I don't like the negativity associated with it, and the just kind of the impact that it has had on our industry in general. I think it's very nasty from time to time, and I do not love that.
Yeah.
I have a really hard time with the lack of communication, the inability of communication with kids nowadays, and a lot of it stems from that. So I think that I wish didn't affect our industry so much, but I know that's not something that can be changed. It's just
Right.
it's life. But from a standpoint of, we never had to deal with the things that our kids have to deal with nowadays. When I wanted to go hang out with one of my friends and didn't invite someone, they never knew,
Right.
but
Yeah.
now is everything's in these kids' faces all the time. And I worry about the impact. I worry about my kid, I worry
Yeah.
about how are things going to be when he's a teenager, it's scary. So I feel like that to me is what I struggle with the most, is the effect of social media on our industry.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's that one's a tough one, and as you already said about the consistency, it's like, yeah, there's no way to make everybody happy,
Yeah.
but and it's something like we have this capacity to be so good to one another. Like, again, I'll take it back just a few minutes talking about that performance, Infinity's
Yeah.
performance that day, after Kenrod, and just the way that as a whole, and I don't necessarily want to say the industry, but 100% everybody at Spirit Sports was in a collective agreement of
Yep.
like, there is nothing but love and support and positivity and admiration and adoration. That was all it was. That was the only energy that existed at that moment, right? And I think even as like as a country, we experienced that after 9/11 for a little while, right? Like that huge
Yep.
tragedy happened, and everybody was just like proud to be an American. There were so many American
Absolutely.
flags, like there was American flags everywhere. Everybody had either a sticker or a flag on their car or a flag on their front porch. Like everybody was just like, hey, we are in this together, like united all as one. And it's like we have that capacity to band together and to really propel positivity out there, and to have this good energy. And for whatever reason, it's like, why can't we do that
I
just
know.
all the time? Because we can, like, we have it within us. It's just I'm right there with you. I wish that could change. I wish there was something we could do,
Me
but
too.
oh my
I think it comes
gracious.
from fear. I think it's just fear of so many things, whether it be, the fear of people wanting to be at other gyms, or people, there's just it's that if we don't produce results and somebody else does, it's like loyalty is very difficult nowadays. It's just not really a thing. And instant gratification of like wanting to go, and the when we were younger, it was you worked your ass off. You worked
Yeah.
your ass off. It didn't matter. You were there not because you were told to be, because you wanted to be. I mean,
Right.
you would just go work on whatever you were doing, whether it be stunting or tumbling or whatever, because you just
Yep.
wanted to be the best. And it didn't matter that there were all kinds of other things that you could be doing. That's what you wanted to do.
Right.
And it's very, very, very difficult to get that buy-in, because now it's well, I want to win, and I want to win right now. And what do you mean I have to put in years of work and I might not win anything? I don't want to do that. It's just,
Right.
it's a different culture, and
Yeah.
trying to instill in our kids the value of that mindset, when in their mindset, well, why would I want to do that? Like, if I'm
Right.
hungry, I'm going to call Uber Eats. Like, like I don't want to
Right.
go do that. It's just everything
Right.
is so at your fingertips all the time.
Yeah.
And trying to explain to a person why it's a better way to go the hard route, it
Right.
doesn't make sense to them. And I get it. I understand why it doesn't make sense, because they don't know any different,
Right.
and it's hard. It's hard because we all worked so hard to get to where we are. but we also have built so much character and are so resilient because of it.
Yeah.
And I hope that all of the people who are still in this industry, who spend, especially our generation, or, close to, I mean, I know I'm older than,
Not
you,
by
and older than
much.
a lot of people,
Not by
but
much.
I, you know what I mean, but relatively,
Yeah.
I hope that when those moments of this industry is whatever, I want to get out, I can't do this anymore, and people they need to get out for their own, sanity, but don't stop doing what you can to help improve the lives of these kids,
Yeah.
and if that's going against the grain, I mean, my kids probably would tell you, if you ask them, that I'm a lot tougher. When we go to competitions or we go to nationals, the first thing that I talk to them about is their etiquette. If you're going to get on a bus, you're going to say hello to the bus driver. When you go to get on an elevator, you wait for them to walk out and then you walk on. Simple things that just you would think are common sense, that they don't know any different. Well, why? Because it's the right thing to do, and
Right.
it's just, we need to help educate these kids of what is and what is not acceptable, and
Yeah.
holding them to a higher standard, because that's the right thing to do. And
Yeah.
I hope that everyone in our industry, in any way, shape, or form, whether they are coaches or owners or music producers or whatever they are, we have the ability to still make a difference. And if
Yeah.
everybody throws their hands up and says whatever, then our world has no chance. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Man, you are like, you just spitting wisdom out for everybody. And I hope people are listening. And I really, really do. And, I don't know if there's a fix, and I don't know what it is. And I think,
yeah,
our generation we're on the other side of that hill,
yeah,
right? So I can't think of any solution, because it's not a problem that I had to experience. I didn't have to grow through it. I'm just looking
yeah,
at it, as an outsider.
yeah,
So it's like, I really don't understand it. But I know for me, like, if I would have had the chance to work with you in your program when I was 22, I would have. I would never have the appreciation for it that I do
yeah,
now,
yeah,
because it was like I had to go through 18 years, 19 years of mixing music and just learning and growing and falling on my face and messing it up, and then finding a way to
right,
get better, and then learning some new things, and then meeting some new people, and then I had to
right,
go through all these things for 19 years, and it finally led me to the moment where when the door was open for me and I had the chance to work with you, it was like I was able to do some of my best work. And the puzzle
absolutely.
pieces were so perfect, because your theme last year for Infinity was Game of
Yes,
Thrones, which is one of my all-time favorite shows ever. And
it's so
so it's like,
fun.
to have, like, there's no way in the world that anything else could have orchestrated that. It was like, it
Yep,
was perfect. It was, the door was finally
totally.
open. I had finally gone through enough things to be a decent enough, like, to have enough confidence in my abilities to where, like,
Yep.
not only can I do this theme, but I can do this theme for you better than anybody else on planet Earth. And it's
Yeah,
like,
you did.
I'm gonna knock it out of the park. It's
Yeah, you
like,
did.
well,
It's all, and to be clear, this year's music is incredible and I love it so much. And I was so worried because I'm like, there's no way, like after last year. But Game of Thrones, that routine and theme will always go down in history as being my
oh,
all-time favorite, because
oh
it was
yeah,
my favorite show and
yep,
it was just so epic. Even though half my kids didn't understand it, and I
yep,
really don't care, because
yep,
it was
yep.
my most epic thing ever. I love
That
it.
it is on my list of top 5 mixes I've ever done. Like,
I
top
love
5,
it.
and it's probably battling for 1 and 2. And the
I
only
love
other
it.
one, oh, I got balloons. Can you see those?
You do have balloons. I just saw
Yeah.
that.
I think it's the peace sign that does it. I don't see it again. Yeah,
Yep,
it
there
is.
it
Look at
is.
that.
It's the peace sign
But like, and it's battling between Game of Thrones and the Star Wars mix that I did this year for Max Senior
for
Stars,
Max.
because it's
Yeah,
like,
that's
those
awesome.
are two of, like, Star Wars and Game of Thrones.
Yep.
And honestly, if I ever get the chance to do a fully original mix with a Marvel theme, oh, it's over.
Oh,
It's a
that would be
wrap.
good.
Like, if I could do
That would
like
be
the
good.
Avengers, oh my gosh, that would be it. That would be okay. Well, anyways, I'm talking about
Now
myself.
you're gonna get hit up for that, just so you
I
know. You
hope
just
so.
threw it
I
out
hope so.
there.
I've gotten to do mixes, like Marvel themed mixes for like semi originals. So I
Uh,
haven't gotten to do like my full, like, they didn't order the package that you guys ordered. Like, when you guys
got it.
ordered the fully original, it's like you get everything. You get my full writing
Totally.
team, all of my artists. So it's like it's
Yep.
all from mostly in here, and everybody else that's way better at writing than me. But yeah, I hope so one day. I hope I get to do that.
That's
Okay.
awesome.
The last thing, and it's not a question.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
I don't even know what to call this, because the other when I interviewed somebody else, it's like, well, you have a chance on this platform. It's like, I don't know if it's a platform. It's probably just my mom watching these videos. So, but I'm also, obviously you'll be able to share it with your families, your Cheer Force families, and all your colleagues and all that. And maybe one day, it'll get cut and spliced and put on Twitter. But in the off chance that the world sees this, is there
Okay.
anything that you'd like to say, to maybe like an old coach, an old mentor, a friend, a parent, somebody that you do coach now, a supporter, or anything you want to just shout from the mountaintops? You have an opportunity to say anything you want. Is there anything you want to say to anybody?
I think the beautiful thing about that is there are so many incredible people in my life that, you know, people always say, we don't understand how you do it. We don't understand how you do all these things. We don't understand how you function with, being in charge of so many things. And it's easy. It's because it takes a village. And I have incredible people in every aspect, whether it be co-coaches or, my gym manager or my office manager, or there's just so many people in my life that make my success possible. And at the end of the day, obviously my family is just, they're everything to me. And I'm very, very fortunate that I can honestly say, and I remember my dad saying this to me when I was really young, find something you love to do and do it for a living, and you'll never work a day in your life. And that is me. That's me to a T. And I know that is not normal. There is not a lot of people, and that's not real life. Not everybody has the luxury of being able to make a living doing something that they love doing. People have to work hard, and that's another thing. And so I almost feel hypocritical saying that, because I also get frustrated with people saying like, well, I don't want to work. I don't want to do this. I need to find something I'm passionate about, which is great. But if you can't do that, then go do something, like do something to make your life, do what you need to do. But because of that, I live a very glass half full life. No matter what happens, it could be worse. I always look at how fortunate I am to have what I have. And that mentality and outlook has changed everything in my life. And I think that, the day that I realized how much better I have it than so many people is the day that no matter what gets thrown at me, I always feel grateful. And that is because of my foundation from my parents. They are the most incredible people in the world. And again, I know not everybody is fortunate enough to have the example that I have. They've been married for, it'll be 50 years, and they're incredible. The sacrifices that they made for me, for other owners out there. I mean, I had to file bankruptcy after 2008, when our gym, everything went to hell. And if it wasn't for my parents helping me through that, I wouldn't have been able to get back up on my feet and open up another gym and it be successful. I had to fall flat on my face. And it's because of my family's, backing and support that made my life possible. So if I can ever, be that person that pays it forward or gives somebody a chance or does whatever to give somebody any kind of help, then that's what I want to be remembered as. And I want for people to know how grateful I am for everyone's help, because I would not be able to do what I do if it wasn't for all of these people in my life in so many capacities. And so for me to sit here and name them all, like I'm sitting here in my mind thinking of all the people I would want to thank, but I would leave too many people out. And that's a
Right.
beautiful thing to be able to say. And people, they know who they are.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I got a little, choked up when you said something your dad said to you was find something that you love and figure out a way to make a living. Like my stepdad stepped in when I was about 9 years old, and he said the same thing to me when I was about 15 years old. He was driving me. I'll never forget it. It was pitch black outside. I was in trouble at school. We won't get into all that, but I had to go to the school at 5:30 in the morning. Had to go to the school. The cheer coach was going to condition me. I was in trouble, so I had a week long conditioning punishment. So I conditioned for an hour, hour and a half before school started. And on my way, I was like, what? How do I? I don't want to be this mess up. Like I don't want to be this screw up kid. What's some advice you can give me? And he's like, find something that you love, get good at it, and figure out a way to make a living doing it. And
Yep.
man, it was so cool to just hear that. And I'm sure that it's been said multiple times by multiple
Right.
parents, but just to hear that, it's like, man, what great advice. And
It's
kudos to
true.
you for listening. Shout out to both of our parents, for
Yep.
hooking us up. And
Absolutely.
thank you so much for being here, for being so transparent, so open.
Of course.
And I am so honored to be in this industry with you. It's a privilege to be your music producer, and I cannot wait to see what you and your program accomplish next, Coach Jen. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, bud.
All right, bye.
Bye.